Welcome to episode 28 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I'm your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me again, my co-host, Matthew Aguilar.
What's up, buddy?
Nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing behind the scenes, nothing to tell anybody. And joining us on the couch, once again, the anime queen herself, Megan Peters, is back.
Hello. I feel like I should have a crown at this point.
I mean, we should get you a tiara or a crown or something.
I mean, I keep being
Something,
introduced.
Like, pretty, badass, some kind of anime headband or something.
Let's just don't go full Naruto on me, please.
Yeah, and we don't mean you're just back. We mean you're back. You have been gone for a while.
I traveled to the future and came back just to tell you about Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, so Megan Peters is here because, as she just said, she has been over in Japan getting to see some of the biggest movies that Japan has inspired for Hollywood this summer, and she's here to tell you about at least one of them. Detective Pikachu, we'll have a review of that later on in the show. We're also going to talk about these new Marvel series that are headed to Hulu and what that might mean for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One of the biggest and most highly anticipated game series may have leaked some first details, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And Mr. Aguilar here is going to break down for us what is new and hot in comics this week. That's a lot to get to. And at the end, we're going to do a little bit of talking. We've been talking Avengers Endgame for several shows now, but I think we're going to just kind of wrap up that talk a little bit by discussing the future of Marvel in Phase 4, what we want to see, what we already know, and any kind of big twist we think might be coming from Phase 4. So that's a lot to do. Like I said, let's jump into it and get to it and start right at the top with talking about Marvel and Hulu. So a lot of things are changing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially on the TV front. The Netflix shows were all canceled this past fall. We learned that Disney Plus streaming service is going to be bringing us a whole new slew of Marvel titles that are kind of related closer to the movies. But Hulu has been quietly kind of expanding out its Marvel content as well. And now we just got two big shows announced that we really didn't expect, but it sound pretty exciting. And that is, we're going to be getting a Ghost Rider TV series with Gabriel Luna from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming back as Robbie Reyes, the Ghost Rider. And we're also going to be getting a Helstrom series featuring the Helstrom siblings. And this has sparked a lot of questions. First of all, these are two not totally random characters, right?
Yeah.
These characters have relationships in the comics and even lead to something bigger, which is the concept of this thing called the Vengeance Verse. And it seems like we could be.
Is that what it's
there.
called?
I mean, that's what we just titled it.
Is that our title?
We've just coined it.
I like that coin.
If anyone uses it, hit us
Yeah,
up.
I mean, we used it in an article, so now it's a thing. Now we're just going to say it's a thing, and so it becomes.
I'm good with it. I like the
Yeah, I mean that is.
Vengeance
It's based off, of course, Ghost Rider being the spirit of vengeance, and all these kind of supernatural related characters that come with that. People like Helstrom, like Blade, like Moon Knight, who are all, like we said, linked to the supernatural in some kind of way. So this has been kind of an exciting prospect. Let's talk about this. I, for one, my first reaction is I'm really happy to hear that Gabriel Luna is getting a full Ghost Rider series.
Yes.
I think ever since Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of introduced that character, which was a weird venue for him to kind of appear
Yeah.
in. I mean,
Yeah.
it really changed the nature of that show. I mean, they have to shift it back to a 10 o'clock time slot just to have Ghost Rider and all his supernatural stuff. It threw in a major kind of MacGuffin with the Darkhold, that storyline, which is something I've wanted to see in live action for a long time and expand on that because it's just a book of hell that you could keep going back to and using for infinite number of plot lines. But yeah, he was an exciting character, good actor, and now we'll get this full series, and I'm really excited about that. And when I heard the Helstrom thing, I was kind of like, but it's one of those characters that I think hasn't really had his due yet, or their due rather in this case, but could really kind of expand to become something, beloved by fans. And it's clear that Marvel's kind of flirting with something that we've talked about them possibly doing for a long time, which is combining superheroes and horror into kind of one thing, and then putting it on TV, which is very forward thinking because TV needs more horror, in my opinion. And so these could be really successful. But what do you guys think of these series? And do you want to see other series like Blade has been a big conversation topic, that a Blade series should be included in this batch? I mean, do you guys want to see this happen?
I mean, if I gotta get through Helstrom to get to Blade,
Okay,
I mean, it's right there.
there's a positive to
okay.
having Helstrom. Helstrom could be an edgier Lucifer kind of show. And I don't know if you've like watched a bunch of Lucifer, but like Lucifer has basically turned into almost a rom-com at this point. But like the Lucifer plays a lot of the same ideas that Damien Helstrom as a character kind of plays with, as far as like bargaining with the devil and all that jazz. And the fact that the show's supposed to have Satana in it too, it brings in a really unique and interesting twist. It all feels too convenient that Marvel put out the Spirits of Vengeance book just a couple years ago that had Ghost Rider, Blade, Satana, and Helstrom, and so I would say that may be a good place for us to start looking. But I am, after we had the whole Netflix set of characters and all of that stuff, to see Hulu have, like, they're willing to spend money. Runaways is a incredibly produced show. Visual effects are pretty good, above average for television. Tackle these darker shows and potentially build 4 shows leading to a Spirits of Vengeance, show or 3 series that lead to that. I am 1,000% all in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hard sell. Like we said, I mean, combining superheroes and horror is something that it's odd. It's more odd that it's taken so long to really kind of push forward.
So I have a weird question.
Yeah.
Kind of going with that whole thing of like Hulu essentially doing what the Netflix model was at the beginning before they couldn't, before the parents got in fights and stuff. Would this be a way for them to essentially do like X-Force later? Like for them to essentially make this their dark R-rated, mature-rated shows?
I think so.
Like
I think that's kind of always been the plan with more and more companies that are a partner in Hulu kind of selling off their shares back to Disney for it. I would love Hulu to become like the
just
dark.
those characters. Like Moon Knight on Hulu could absolutely work if this model. Now, granted, that's all if this works and if this is good.
Right. But I mean, Hulu. There's no reason to doubt Hulu so far. Like Jim said, Runaways has been pretty good, and they are kind of grooming this. And we have. I'm trying to think of where the list is, but there's a bunch. I mean, this isn't the only series coming to Hulu.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They renewed Pen 15. They renewed a ton of other shows on that slate that are I think Hulu's in this for the long haul and not a type of.
For me, no one has been able to get that mix right. Like Lucifer tried it. Constantine had a kind of a similar thing. No one's really been able to crack this.
If Helstrom is Constantine meets Lucifer,
I'm down.
It's gonna
because I loved Constantine despite its flaws and issues. I really enjoyed that show and was bummed that it got canceled. Never could get into Lucifer, so I've just I'm down for this if they can make it work.
Yeah, the thing I'm interested in, especially outside of the world of comics, there's about to be a huge hole for this kind of supernatural mythos with Supernatural coming to an end soon.
Yeah.
A lot of those fans have gone to Lucifer and they tried Constantine and they felt it was a really good fit. So if Hulu can provide a really accessible way to kind of fit in the hole that Supernatural will leave behind after like 90 years of being on air,
And
I feel like
that's the only thing that's come close to being the most comic booky,
like horror,
supernatural, literally supernatural.
Right. The question is like what late 20s heartthrob are they going to get to play Damien Helstrom?
Ooh.
I mean, let's not even go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, man.
We got a lot of people to cast. We need a new Wolverine, a new Batman. I mean, there's a lot of pressing things before we get to
It's a whole show.
I mean, you're basically asking, hey, which actor eating ramen right now wants a breakout role?
Yes.
There's I'm sure there's a whole casting room full of them ripping off shirts and painting pentagrams on their chest right now. So
I mean, that's exactly
weird visual.
that's exactly how I assumed Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki got into Supernatural.
yeah, right? So, I mean, this all sounds pretty exciting. I think everybody's kind of jazzed by if not these individual. I mean, I don't know anybody who isn't kind of excited for Ghost Rider. Hellstrom's kind of a question mark, but the possibilities that this creates expands. And one thing that people are really potentially excited for is the question, if this all works out, could Hulu eventually get back these Marvel Netflix characters? I'm going to apologize right now because I'm sick. So there's going to be some coughing in this episode, but because there is a contract and after 2 years or so, then there's a possibility at least some of them could come back and you could get Daredevil or the Punisher or somebody back, and that would be pretty cool.
Especially
man.
if you merge them all with this new, because by that
But-
point
Yeah.
it'll be.
But here's the
years
thing, though.
and
Like to that point, like if they bring those characters back and it's those actors, and if we're saying that all the stuff that happened before happened,
There's a lot of ifs there.
is
there's-
is this all taking place in the same universe? I mean, with Gabriel Luna being Ghost Rider, Jeff Loeb will always say hashtag it's all.
But didn't they say? I thought they said this one was not.
it's not picking up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not picking up any storylines from Agents of Shield, but I mean, I would imagine it's still that same character. He's still
I
playing
don't know.
Robin.
I would like them if they're going to. He was the only reason I watched Agents of Shield. I'm sorry, I've never been a giant fan of the show. Like it was fine in its first
Wow.
few seasons,
I didn't know
and
this
then
was
it
going
kind
to
of
be a
went.
Robbie-
Confessions episode.
Well, no, but that I got back into the show because of that. I was like, it looks fantastic. This looks a lot better than I expected it to, and I was in. And then when they switch gears and go, oh, we're going back to our show, I was like, see ya, bye.
Yeah, Robbie Reyes definitely did something very important for that, and Gabriel Luna was a huge part. So I'm just still not sure whether or not I want that take of Robbie to be what's on Hulu.
I almost want them to start fresh.
Well, I mean, the last we saw of him, he went back into hell.
Yeah. So he comes out a changed man no matter what
I
happens.
mean, in hell theoretically doesn't. I mean, after what happened in Avengers Endgame, spoilers, hell isn't necessarily like connected to the flow of space time.
Yeah.
Like everything
That's fair.
else. So he could come out in any kind of circumstances. He could come out 5 years later and be like, "What do you mean? What is the snap? Like, what happened
That's
here?
true.
Like,
that's
what is
true.
going on?"
Yeah,
Like,
interesting way to get around it. Mm-hmm. And not be
Smart.
burdened by all that.
It's Marvel; they can do what they want at this point.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of possibility, but yeah, it could be a very different Ghost Rider than the one we saw in Agents of Shield, and it kind of almost has to be.
Oh, for
if he's
sure.
going into a series. I mean, I think the comparison would be like John Bernthal's Punisher, who we got good strokes of in Daredevil season 2, but really got deeper into and became a much different character once he got into his own series. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping for something like that again to kind of be repeated. And I'm also hoping we get some things to kind of erase some of those Ghost Rider villains from the movie past and get reintroduced, like Blackheart, things like that.
But here's the thing: do you want Nicolas Cage to be somehow a part of this?
Yes,
Absolutely, yes.
That is a yes. That is the most firm yes I have.
Yeah.
I would love to see, if Nick Cage made an appearance as Johnny Blaze, that would
Wouldn't it
that
be
would
amazing?
set, no pun intended, that would set the fandom on fire. I would also like to see somebody play Dan Ketch and like do that whole iteration and get into the history of Ghost Rider and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty cool. I think that's about it, though. I mean, we're kind of cautiously optimistic about all this. We definitely want a Blade series.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Give me.
And maybe this is the gateway to get Moon Knight. And if
Yeah,
it's a gateway,
and if
totally
we've
epic.
Jim is, I mean, I know Jim is secretly crossing fingers under the desk over there. He's wanted this Moon Knight thing to happen for a long time.
and
so-
this is
Yes.
the best shot.
yeah,
for
absolutely
the best
If you're gonna do
avenue is
something-
TV.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I would love for that to happen.
exactly. So
I just had zero faith in Jeff Loeb, but that's another problem.
hey,
Not
Comic
the only
Book
one
Nation does
confessing
not
things.
endorse. Comic Book Nation does not endorse the opinions and views of
Glad we
Chris Cardi.
just, I'm glad we just pissed on Marvel
Yeah, I
TV.
know. All right.
We all
So,
just cautiously
moving right
take a
along
step
before
back.
Marvel TV hears too much of this, we got a leak, possible leak from one of the most highly, most popular video game series, Grand Theft Auto. It's been a long wait between Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6. I've had 2 kids since then. I just remember sitting with my pregnant wife who was like, I like this game. I just want to watch you play it, which was a rarity to hear from her. But Grand Theft Auto is always an event in gaming, and we've heard some of the first leaks about what Grand Theft Auto 6 will be, and it sounds massive, and it sounds kind of epic in all the wrong moral ways that you love from a Grand Theft Auto game. Basically, we've heard this will be kind of like a Scarface story in a sense that like you go from lowly criminal to massive crime lord, and it's going to feature probably the biggest world we've seen for the game yet. It's going to feature iconic locations like 2 of them, Liberty City and Vice City, which are from the early Grand Theft Auto games leading up to about Grand Theft Auto 4 or Grand Theft Auto Vice City, whatever you want to call it, and that there's going to be a lot of traveling and a whole world of traveling in smaller counties and countries and roads in between as you're basically starting out just running drugs and have to become a major kind of cartel drug lord, which sounds pretty cool in my book. the games can be. I mean, the games have been hit or miss for me. Loved Vice City. Really didn't like San Andreas. Kind of really like Grand Theft Auto 5. But this sounds pretty cool. This sounds like something you could get invested in and be invested in for a long time. You know, it's also going to start a lot of horrible things as people try to murder, cheat, steal, and screw their way into becoming a legitimate crime kingpin. But
I missed it.
That's what the journey is.
In your description. So is it current day? It's present day, right?
Oh.
Or is it actually back in since like, because Vice City was what, 80s? Liberty City, or sorry, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was 90s. I didn't know if it's.
I don't know if we
present or not.
know all of that quite yet.
Okay.
I mean, these are just like.
League
But I'm. I mean, I'm. What do you think, Megan?
So the Grand Theft Auto franchise and I have a long, complicated history, which is too much to explain on this podcast right now. But I've only played a couple of games, but I like watching. It was some weird, sick way, I guess, to see like how this goes down. Like for me, I like playing Grand Theft Auto to like drive around and like run over people. That sounds awful. I'm a
No, I
terrible
mean,
person.
that is, like I said, this is a game that like starts some really questionable moral enjoyment.
Yes.
And yeah, that is not the worst thing that people love to systematically do in Grand Theft Auto games.
And the problem I've always had is like really connecting to a story, but everything you were just saying of like kind of starting down and like becoming this like kind of like drug kingpin, I think is interesting. I think the thing that I will be most curious to watch in playthroughs, which is generally how I consume games because I don't have money, is watching like the narrative choices that you can make to like become a drug lord. So like, how many people do you have to kill, or like, is there an option you can do this without that? Like, are they gonna like surprise us a little bit? I'd be interested to see that like super hard mode, like do this, but you can't kill anyone or run over anyone. Like,
I think
takes
it's
all the
interesting
fun out,
because
but-
it'll be the first one that we've gotten since like the Breaking Bad era.
Yeah, true.
And I think for a lot of people, if they can kind of make that connection, that'll be interesting. It'll be like, you want to be your own Walter White? Here you go. Like,
Throw
makes-
pizza
yeah.
on a roof.
yeah, exactly. And just like what you do in this kind of deepening spiral. But Grand Theft Auto 5 also had a great storyline with multiple characters that you played. And you really got invested in being these characters and playing these people and playing it all out. So I hope they don't lose that in the process. But all right, you got to take all this with a grain of salt because, like we said, this is just leaks. It's nothing confirmed. So far, sounds so good. What?
I want a better cast.
You want a better cast?
I want a better cast of characters this time around.
Okay, I mean,
I couldn't get invested in the last one. Like I made it over halfway through and was like, I'm
you didn't like Franklin?
Franklin was fine. Michael was fine. Trevor was entertaining for the first like couple hours, and then I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I want Rockstar to utilize a little bit of nuance in some of their characters, and sometimes they don't. And I would just like
No, I mean, yeah, I would say the Grand Theft Auto franchise isn't known for its nuance.
no, it's not known for subtlety.
You're
It's not
looking
known
for
for that.
subtlety. To
But I mean, in a story like
But-
this, it should. I mean, it's arguable that it should be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they like to, they put a lot of emphasis on their mature storytelling and these mature, larger than life concepts.
Any kind of like drug kingpin story has to have the start and stops where it's all good and glamorous at first.
Yeah.
Then things get real when it kind of blows back on your personal life, and then like you go,
I also
it can
wanna
get really
see
dark
them-
really quick.
I also want to see them switch up their genders for their cast because so far it's been all men. I would like
You
for
want-
them to see. I would like to see them
You want a
tackle
female protagonist who can go up
at
there
least
and
as part of the
beat
group.
up the hook.
At least as part of the group. Well, I just want
No,
one. I
I'm
want to see what they can do because they've written really great female characters in other franchises of theirs. So I would just like to see them do it here.
All right. Well, we'll keep you up to date about what's going on with Grand Theft Auto 6 as more official stuff comes out. Now we're going to move from games to comics. Matt, it is your time to shine. Tell us what is hot this week in comics and what we should be checking out.
So I love how I went on that whole thing about nuance, and then the first book I'm going to talk about is Deceased, which brings a lot of
Sounds
death
startling,
and-
like a sterling recommendation you're about to get. Here.
Also, what a solid segue.
I mean, I thought so, right? I wish I would have played that. But it's actually quite good. So it's essentially Tom Taylor's take on we've seen storylines dealing with like zombies or the undead or viruses, things like that. It's a different take on that using the anti-life equation. And it's really interesting so far. Like, it essentially, Darkseid messes up and they create they end up creating like an alternate version of the equation, and they screw it up, and because of that, they end up like infecting like the entire world, including Darkseid, infecting himself. And the way the story kind of goes, it zigs a lot, where you kind of expect for
What
the
happens
things
when
to
you try to play New God?
it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Kind of surprised me. I wasn't really. I like Tom Taylor. His stuff is really good in the past, but I didn't expect to be kind of swept away by this book. But so far, it's got me. So it's a very interesting book. There's a lot more that happens in it, so I won't kind of go into detail there. But issue number 1 is out, so check it out there. Also, my campaign to always big up the Green Lantern. The Green Lantern number 7, Jim's favorite book, is fantastic. Again, this might be one of the best issues of the series. So Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp are just knocking it out of the park, doing some weird stuff, but it's really fun and interesting and quirky, and I love it. Also, Deathstroke number 43 is the end of the Terminus agenda, which is kind of the storyline that's been running in Teen Titans and Deathstroke kind of simultaneously. There's a big thing that happens in this book kind of towards the end, one of those like typical comic things like, oh my God, that person survived or that person died. But it's actually the little character moments between Robin and Deathstroke that is the most interesting nugget here. And I'm really interested to see where they go forward from this. This crossover has really surprised me. I really wasn't expecting much from it, and they've done a lot of really cool character work here. So I'm hopeful to see that in both books. Also, for just complete fun and giggles, Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
I like how you did that.
3, number 1 is out.
I can't believe we're on a third series of that. I mean, I've loved all of
It's
them.
so good, and it
It's
has
so-
no reason to be. It has no reason to be.
It's just 1, 2 mini numbers.
Yes, I will say for longtime Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, there's a ton of cool redesigns on these characters. They essentially like mashed up the Batman universe and the Turtles universe, but like they did character mashups this time around. It's like this all one weird universe. So like you have a Clayface, Rocksteady, you have Bebop that's a mix up of Killer Croc, Joker and the Shredder have been merged. The Turtles have all taken
pretty
on
freaky.
like different Robin forms, like Leonardo's Nightwing, Red Hood is Raphael, right? So it's really cool stuff here.
That is pretty cool.
That's pretty
But the
cool.
last like 3 pages kind of delivers another like, oh, I didn't think they were gonna do that, and throw like it's crazy. It's for Turtles fans, it's really cool. So again, the series has no reason to be good, but it's awesome. So I would definitely check that out. For the Marvel side of things,
Can we just real quick talk about it? Oh, unless you're going to say another series that has no reason to be good, but actually turned out.
I'm
pretty
curious,
well.
what is it?
Savage Avengers?
I was just gonna get
It's
to
the
that.
next one on the list.
By the way,
Always jumping the gun, Viscard.
so I'm curious. So did you like it?
I actually really enjoyed it way
Okay.
more than I thought I was going to.
So for those who don't know, Savage Avengers is a team that is made up of Venom, Wolverine, Punisher, Elektra, Dr. Druid, and Conan. And that-
Barbarian, that Conan.
yeah, that.
Yes.
Yeah, not like. And I at one point I was like, oh, Kazar's in the book, but it's actually Conan.
Wow.
the Barbarian.
But yeah, no, it's surprisingly good. And this team you don't know if it's going to be this book. had the potential to be really
I'm not
bad.
with you two at all. I as soon as I heard this project, I knew it would be good.
You knew? Okay.
Yeah, I
didn't have
thought
that
it was
kind
like
of
the
faith.
closest
Sorry.
thing I would get to like the Avengers from Dark Reign. It was pretty much what I kind of when I kind of started thinking about, and that's what I got excited about it. I was like, okay, this looks pretty good. I also read and did like cover the introduction of Conan.
Okay.
like when he first met Savage or Scarlet Witch, and saves her, and so I was kind of psyched for that.
You know who this team is missing?
Who?
Moon Knight. This team is like made for Moon Knight.
Also, you said Dr. Druid. I think you mean Brother Voodoo.
Sorry, Brother Voodoo. Yes,
Yes.
thank you. I'm sorry.
There is this,
Faux pas. That was
there
another
is just there's a moment in this like Mike Deodato's the artist on this book, and the dude is just born to draw Conan type stories. But there's a moment in this book that I can't tell if it was intentional or not, but it looks like Wolverine kicks Conan right in the stones, and I was just like, that's either a brilliant Wolverine moment or something got a little muddied up.
Really?
In the other. But either way, I thought it was great.
So yeah, definitely check that out. That series starts today.
Yeah,
Or
that-
sorry, starts Wednesday.
I think this and or Avengers BC or whatever it's called, the one that
Oh yeah, the Jason Aaron.
Yeah.
the Ancient Team. I mean, those are two of the most interesting.
That team
things.
is. I loved that team.
Yeah, I
when
mean, those are two of the
debuted,
most
yeah.
interesting Avengers things I've seen, and I want to really check those out when they
Ghost Rider alone was just that design. It's just,
Woolly Mammoth, yeah.
That's fantastic.
I want to see all of those when they become collected because, those seem pretty interesting. And yeah, I had faith in Savage Avengers since day one. That's for Marvel.
Uncanny X-Men number 17 was also just a really good issue of X-Men. I've been really enjoying Matthew Rosenberg's run so far, and a lot of Cyclops versus Wolverine point of view stuff. But the biggest thing here is that Emma Frost is kind of coming back into the fold. I'm a huge Emma Frost fan. She's been kind of away from the book for a minute, and so I'm really stoked that they're going to kind of bring her in full tilt. Also, real quick, Meet the Skrulls. That book has been has surprised me from the opening issue and continues to be fantastic. So it's just a really interesting, like, weird slice of life mixed with, oh my God, all these people on Earth kind of cosmic thing. And it's all under the guise of like they're being stealth about it and trying to like battle a covert government agency. It's got all that weird stuff in it. And then you have this family trying to get along and like this weird This Is Us style scroll story.
It sounds like Coneheads.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
There you go.
Coneheads. So that is also
To
out.
date myself, how old I am.
So a lot of great comics this week.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Stay tuned because when we come back, we are going to drop one of the first reviews of Detective Pikachu that you are going to hear from one of the biggest Pokemon experts probably out there. So be sure to listen for that. Okay. It's a good time for me to have a cold this episode because you guys get to take these segments away and I get to just kind of rest my old voice. So Megan Peters, please tell us. The world has been waiting. We have real bets on the line in this office about what's about to happen with Detective Pikachu. So please tell us what we are in store for.
If I'm being honest, Detective Pikachu is about to put in store the next cinematic universe. That's what I'm going to say, point blank. To go beyond that, this is the most wish fulfillment movie any geek could want to see and will see. Basically, without any spoilers, because neither of you have seen it, and I almost spoiled something for Matt earlier, and he got real testy.
I was just testing.
Yes, we're just going to avoid any of that.
He's quite peppery at times.
Yes, a little bit. But what's also peppery is Pikachu. In this film, you walk in, if you're a fan of Pokemon, this is for sure a movie you absolutely have to see. It is a straight up 5 out of 5 for Pokemon fans. This is, without a doubt, though I do love the Super Mario Bros. Movie and stuff like that, this is the best live action adaptation of an anime or a game that has happened. It really proves Hollywood can do it if it brings in, I mean, they did it. It happened. But what happened to make this a reality was they brought in a cast and a crew that had a really deep love for Pokemon. I was able to speak with 2 of the screenwriters, Benji Samit and Dan Hernandez. They are huge fans of this series. They got into Pokemon when they were teenagers and were playing the video games and saw the anime. And they were just huge nerds and were really lobbying to do this series justice, as well as, the star Justice Smith, who plays Tim Goodman. When I was able to interview him in Japan, we were just talking about the Elite Four so much. And he was naming them and their Pokemon parties. He's such a big fan. These are all things that factored into Pokemon Detective Pikachu being honestly the building blocks of a cinematic universe, much like Iron Man was for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That was going to be my question. It sounds like a good time to ask it, is how is the world building? I mean, for both Pokemon fans, you've kind of laid it out, but for people like myself who never really fully, I mean, I watched the anime when it used to air on TV back in the late 90s, early 2000s, but I never was so deep into it. So how would it be for somebody like me?
So coming into this, the very beginning of the film is very insular and it focuses on the characters, but as soon as that beginning of the second arc begins, you are just flooded with information, not only about the history of Pokemon and how they factor into the ancient times, how Pikachu lived in Egypt, but you get to learn more about the region that is Rhyme City. That's an entirely new region. It's not part of Kanto, it's not part of Johto or Alola or anything like that. It's by itself, separated, so it gets to be an insular film with an original story. But it makes sure that you know that there are all 800 plus Pokemon in this entire universe. All the other regions are there. Trainers are out happening with the Elite Four. It's very much setting up the kind of universe that Iron Man did when, Nick Fury walks in at the end. He's like, there's a bigger story than just you as Iron Man happening. You kind of got the idea of the Avengers. It very much does this in the film that, there's more than just Tim Goodman. There's more than just Pikachu. There's more characters and more trainers that are out there on this journey that are ready to be explored. And so it does it beautifully. And also the Pokemon look so good, which is really a great thing for me to talk about after we got the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog. We're just gonna skip over that one real quick. They're so cute and lifelike. I just remember there's a shot that we've seen in the trailer, and this is what I keep telling people, where we get to see an expanse of Rhyme City. There's Pokemon walking around, there's humans. The whole point of the city is that they live in harmony with one another. The scene is a little different in theaters. There's a lot more happening in the actual, final edit of that cut. And I just kind of started tearing up because I remember just being a 6-year-old kid with a Pikachu plushie in my class, and the other kids liked Pokemon, but I was into Pokemon. And just all of a sudden I was like, yeah, this is what a world with Pokemon would be. It could totally happen.
It's my dreams.
I know, it's my destiny, Pokemon. So I just can't stress, thank you very much. I can't stress how taken away I was with this film, because much like other people who have such an attachment to the Pokemon franchise, you expect it, or you hope it's good, but Hollywood doesn't necessarily have the best reputation adapting anime or video games, let alone both of them together in one. And I came in really cautious, but the trailers, they started to prove us this looks good. And within the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, I was in love with what this universe presented to me in this one story, and then what it has left to offer.
Couple questions just to wrap this up.
Go for it.
Does Ryan Reynolds really, some people were kind of concerned, is his Pikachu a good distinction from Deadpool?
Yes. So there's a couple moments where he gets a little lippy, I can kind of hear Deadpool coming out, but there's more of a kind of emotional, tangent that runs through. I would say he's more vulnerable in this film than the performance that we see as Wade Wilson and Deadpool.
And the other thing is, how's the action?
So the action, I wish there was more. That's probably my biggest complaint, is I wanted more action. There's 3 main action sequences during the film. One that people have seen in the trailers featuring Charizard. I think it's so interesting in these action films. It very much feels like a Pokemon battle. There are trainers calling out technique names.
Oh, cool.
It's very much, you feel engaged. You're sitting there thinking, oh, he needs to use Volt Tackle. He definitely needs to use Volt Tackle. And then 2 minutes later, when one of the trainers will be use Volt Tackle. So not only do you feel reaffirmed as a fan of the franchise, but it very much is paying true kind of attention to what the franchise is, but also just looks really cool. Charizard, #terrifying, but Gyarados, wrecks everyone.
And do you think, based on the sheer amount of trash that has been talked in this office, do you see this becoming $1 billion earner?
Yeah. Okay.
So as soon, I'm not sure what it's tracking for right now. I think internationally is going to pull in so much money. I think once the reception comes in, people are going to be very excited. The only thing I'm concerned about is the money blowback from Avengers Endgame, because I know people have seen that movie 3 times already. And what's a movie theater ticket? It's kind of expensive. I know
$13, right?
Yeah, so depending on how much money you've
Yeah.
spent on Avengers Endgame could affect what Pokemon is, but I definitely think Detective Pikachu is building up to become that $1 billion franchise. It very much, I hate the way that I keep explaining it to people, especially in the geek sphere, it feels very much like Iron Man does. Has a couple of inconsistencies, but it has that heart and it lays the foundation for what's to come.
All right, so that'll do it for our review of Detective Pikachu. You can read Megan's full review on Comicbook.com, and we'll be breaking the film down for weeks to come, on the site, so we'll have all of your Easter eggs, Pokemon appearances, all the things you need to know. So be sure to check that out. All right. Last but not least today, we are going to kind of push our Avengers Endgame conversation a little bit further into Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4. We talked a little bit about how Endgame sets up things for Phase 4, but let's talk about what we know so far. So, Phase 4 is going to be kind of an interesting chapter of this franchise in that there's so many questions, right? Endgame actually, in some ways, inspires more questions than it answers. It kind of leaves us with this time jump, multiple timelines. We are now living in a full, legitimate Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Directors Joe and Anthony Russo have since confirmed this, that like when Captain America goes and lives in the 40s and Loki takes the Tesseract, that these are new timelines. So yeah, we are living in the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. And I'm wondering if that will even be rebranded as we go forward into Phase 4. I mean, there's questions about how long will it be before we get to moving forward the present action. I mean, Spider-Man Far From Home will move things ahead. But other than that film, I mean, we don't necessarily have to move forward in the present yet.
No.
All of these other films could take place in the past. And what we have confirmed so far, we know, is we're getting Eternals, Black Widow, Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Captain Marvel 2, or is Captain Marvel 2 even confirmed
It's
yet?
not confirmed yet.
But it's all but.
It's coming.
Yeah, that $1 billion
better be something.
pretty much confirms that. And Shang-Chi, right? Did I leave anything out? I think those are the only movies we have, right?
That's it.
So, yeah, like all of those could take place, most of them at least. Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we know have to move things forward.
Yeah.
But Eternals, not necessarily. Black Widow, definitely not. And Shang-Chi, not necessarily either. So there's a lot of time we could be playing with just catching up to the present, number one. And since this is the multiverse, I think the most interesting thing that's happening is we're getting to learn more about what is happening with these Disney Plus Marvel shows, which just sounded cool before we went into Endgame. But then after seeing Endgame, you go back and you start to compare to what these new Disney Plus shows are going to be. And we're talking about, What If, which is flying under the radar right now, but I think we're going to put some spotlight on that for a reason. The WandaVision series, the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, and the Loki series. Not all of these are all potentially big tie-ins to what happens in Endgame all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, it was just a novelty before we saw the film. We're like, okay, those are cool. Those are all popular characters or titles. But here's what we now know. Okay, so I was doing a breakdown of Avengers Endgame's ending the other day and writing about how Joe and Anthony Russo kind of say Captain America is now living in his own timeline. And there was a big question now becomes like, how does he get a new shield? And how does he come back to the main timeline at the end of Endgame to appear as that old man and give it to Falcon? So then I started digging, and it's like, yeah, Marvel's What If series coming to Disney Plus. The very first episode is, of course, a what if about a timeline where Sharon Carter or Peggy Carter becomes Captain America instead of Steve Rogers, who becomes Iron Man based on Howard Stark because he knows Howard Stark and Howard Stark's knowledge of technology. And all of a sudden, the light bulb went on. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a little bit more relevant now than just a throw-off what-if episode, right? Like this actually could potentially have ties. The Loki series could be exploring what happens to Loki now that he kind of escapes in 2012 and has to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
The Falcon and Winter Soldier series is absolutely now more important because it's all about the transition to who becomes Captain America and how that all functions, right? So this is all kind of in WandaVision, of course, is important because Vision is still dead AF after Endgame, and we have no idea how he's coming back to kind of be in this series.
Yeah.
And they've said weird stuff like it's set in the 1950s vibe. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, that show, I'm clueless on that.
I have
I
so
thought
many
I
questions.
I thought I had a beat on it going in, and then once Endgame hit, I was like,
Unless it's from the
anything
years they spent in Infinity War and it's in Bruges and they're just hanging out in some weird European town that's lost in time. So these are all going to be really interesting things. And now this Disney Plus lineup has become much more important for the next phase of these Marvel shows.
Do you think these Disney Plus shows are going to be the vehicles to move the story forward as opposed to relying on
I think a lot of them are starting to sound like Endgame cleanup.
because you still have, out of the batch of movies that are coming out, you still have a bunch that presumably are taking place after Endgame,
Black Panther,
Guardians 3, Black Panther,
Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, and Guardians
Doctor Strange
3.
2. Yeah, so
But they all can be so insular in the sense that they don't have to touch anything else.
Yeah, especially like Doctor Strange.
I mean, Guardians is the
Started to
only
say.
one that could have like major ties to Endgame in the sense of if Thor's in it, if they're looking for Gamora and that whole storyline,
Right.
like that one. But Black Panther 2 could just be what happens in Wakanda as a result of Endgame and Infinity War and all the shakeups politically that happened there that could really mess with Black Panther's position as king. And Doctor Strange 2, we've already heard tell is just about Nightmare, which is just like, I mean, all the Mystic stuff is its own
Yeah.
kind of closed in. And
I
Captain
wonder,
Marvel
I
could
wonder
be
if
in
like
the
Doctor
past.
Strange 2 becomes like sort of PTSD from the events of Endgame that Nightmare potentially plays a role in, and like taking those memories and making Doctor Strange's life.
I was excited
Yeah.
about Doctor Strange 2 before because I really liked the first one. But I gotta say, like, these two movies, Infinity War and Endgame, have really pushed my enthusiasm for that movie because Doctor Strange looked like a boss in both of those movies. They pushed in, they made him look strong. Like, I had Anissa who's never seen the first one go, I want to watch his movie now. Because, like, after seeing what he could do and seeing all the
Yeah.
importance he has, like, that sequel.
And
I'm
him and just like
so
the
stoked
whole
for now.
the sequence with the Masters of the Mystic Art scroll running out, and
Yeah,
providing
that
those
was so
shields and like all that stuff.
Like,
that was really
oh,
cool.
my lord.
Again,
So-
it was very anime.
So
just
what-
a plug.
What do you guys think about this lineup so far? And what do you think? Do you think there are more surprises? I mean, obviously Marvel's gonna eventually let us in on more, but do you think there are any surprises, especially in the film side?
Eternals is probably the biggest one, right? I think it's the biggest unknown with the most potential to introduce very big universe changing concepts and ideas.
Are you talking surprises from the ones we know about or just in general?
I mean, these are just like your wish list hopes.
Okay,
or
so
things,
like
anything.
it doesn't have to be one of these.
No.
I mean, but I'm a huge Eternals fan anyway, so like that,
Okay.
like this is one I think I can see it tying in some aspect of Guardians, which it kind of help move that a bit forward. But like I said, it has the potential to introduce very big ideas that I think we only just sort of got a little bit of, just as far as the Jack Kirby of it all in Thor Ragnarok. So That's
I
what
do agree. I'm not really looking forward to Eternals yet. Like it doesn't that
I guess I should back this up.
It's
Is there
okay,
something in
Will.
Phase 4 that you are currently even really excited for? Because that's also a big question.
Well, I mean-
momentum.
Doctor Strange 2
Doctor Strange.
was my like
Okay.
that one's huge.
the direct sequels. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we're already attached to those characters. Eternals.
Captain Marvel 2.
But
kind of
are you
ethereal
as
right
excited
now.
for those as you were for the first movies, or even like Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame? Or are you just like, oh yeah, I'll see that when that comes out?
It's kind of like that. As soon as they announce that they're going to do a Young Avengers movie, then I'll be like, yes, please. Especially now that we have that Hawkeye.
I want
Disney
Nova.
Plus series coming out.
Yeah, Nova.
I
Yeah.
want
Yeah,
Nova.
this is stuff
Like
I was
if-
going to get into. So, like, Nova. Yeah, I'm really excited.
I want the
for it.
Raptors introduced.
I
so
want
get Dark
Young
Hawk.
Avengers because Endgame seeds has dropped the seeds for Young Avengers. And I just wrote a very long piece before we came in here about what villain could be the next overarching villain for Phase 4. And, I did one about Kang the Conqueror, who is very much geared towards what happened in Endgame.
Absolutely.
Like, once you start messing with a timeline, Kang, Immortus, Ramatut, Iron Lad, all that stuff ties to so many things that it seems almost perfect because Kang is a great way to get, like, the Fantastic Four into this universe. It's a great way to bring a lot of people because Kang is a long-term villain.
yeah.
With so many facets to him, like literally like 4 personas and all these things.
And he's been linked to
histories.
everybody at
Yeah.
some point. Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, and just kind of like bringing in things like multiple timelines where eventually there's a big event that has to merge all these things or fix all this timeline stuff with Immortus pulling strings as this kind of other big bad. And just the mystery of people who don't know having to see Kang, who is this angry warlord, and there's this other dude who's like a very kind of pulling the strings, and then, oh, holy crap, what a twist. They're the same person. Like, nobody has any idea. If you've ever read Avengers Forever, that miniseries, like, you know how twisty, turny, timey-wimey this can all get.
I was going to
really
say,
fast.
and that's also the danger.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Kang is so, for as many good Kang stories as I've read double that of just, oh my God, this makes no sense. So
yeah,
But I think
convoluted.
Kang has the potential to like show up at the end of something and drive that same amount of speculation and buzz that Thanos did. I think people are more prepared this time around.
Yeah.
Than when Thanos showed up. But I think Kang can carry that same like
Yeah.
holy ass moment.
And once you start throwing in things like Iron Lad and the mystery of Iron Lad and how he forms a young Avengers and all that stuff, like it seems like he would be a great overarching villain. So I mean, I was all Secret Invasion before Endgame, but now I'm kind of Team Kang after this whole thing.
I still want that to happen.
Oh, Secret Invasion? Me too.
Yeah.
Like, I still hold that whole that whole Spider-Man theory that, like, that's him, like, that's Ben Mendelsohn in the background. Like, I hope all that's true because I want.
But what I don't want Secret Invasion to be something that like Civil War inevitably end up becoming. Like Captain America 3 was
Yeah.
just Civil War. Like I
Yeah,
would
you-
want Secret Invasion to be
Like Captain Marvel too.
Yeah,
I don't want to
be
be
like
Captain
Captain
Marvel
Marvel
2.
3. Please don't do that.
I also want, and it's so weird because in the first, this is one of those things where I think when they made the change in Captain Marvel to the Skrulls, I think that is possibly the coolest thing to happen to Secret Invasion because Secret Invasion as a storyline was very one note. It was awesome. I loved it, but it was very like, oh, hey, the Skrulls have infiltrated. They're bad. And we're going to root them all out.
Well,
whatever.
a lot of it was just them springing the trap and then like
That was the
many
fun part.
issues of just watching the multiple fronts of the trap
Exactly.
play out.
And in this, because they have been portrayed in a much different way in Captain Marvel, I'm very interested to see what they can do with that because to me that could be even better than the books. Like a lot of these events.
I mean, it doesn't have to be one. Let's take it up a notch, like Kevin Feige. It's time to make that string board even more complicated.
Yeah.
Like we said,
Yeah.
like Brandon was saying on like one of our previous episodes. Yeah, I mean, do a Kang storyline, and in the background, in these little subtle moments, scroll
Plant
stuff.
the seeds,
Yeah.
man.
yeah, for sure. Scrolls will only make everything better.
I didn't mean to snort. You got me on that one. Like, scrolls will make everything better.
And Darkhawk.
All right,
Darkhawk.
Darkhawk. I was gonna say any other Phase 4 wishes? Matt has a Darkhawk wish.
Dude, they are so cool when they're used right. The Raptors and that whole thing are so awesome when they're used right.
Talking
Not
Hulu.
used right very often. but-
there is honestly a better chance of Moon Knight getting a movie before the Raptors show up.
No, a movie or just a series? Because Hulu, yes, if it's a TV series, I completely agree with you.
No, I think Moon Knight will get a movie.
No. I
I
put
think
them
Mark-
on even.
No, I
ground.
think Mark Spector's kind of too complicated.
He should get a TV series.
I think he's a shoo-in to get a TV series, and he'd be amazing.
But
I'm saying as a movie, I think they're on.
But
equal
Kevin
footing.
Feige wants his Batman, and they may take Moon Knight.
Also, I want a cardiac, but that can't happen.
All right, so Darkhawk and
cardiac
Moon Knight.
never-
Those are our
never
final
end.
wishes, I guess. Kang, more Skrulls,
Nova.
Darkhawk, Moon Knight. No,
Well,
and
but also-
Nova,
but-
yeah.
but like the
We even talked
Fantastic
Nova. Nova
Four.
is a must.
Nova's a
But the
must.
Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
like that. I mean, like I know we kind of mentioned it, but like that is something that I am
Oh.
excited
Yeah,
to.
spoilers,
Yeah, we should
Kang is
also-
actually the descendant of Reed Richards, Mr.
Yeah.
Fantastic, so that is a whole thing you would need to get to. But that's the great thing. With Kang, you don't have to immediately do that. Like,
Right.
it would take a long time, and that would be even a final reveal.
Also,
Or
you know
Disney
who
Plus
Kang
series.
has
Yes.
taken on. He's taken on Squirrel Girl, and I would love to see Squirrel Girl
Squirrel.
introduced into the thing. Yep.
You had to
Yeah.
choose one, Darkhawk, Ms. Marvel, or Squirrel Girl. For
Ms.
Phase
Marvel's
Oh,
coming. That's
no,
a
Ms.
shoo-in.
Marvel's happening.
She's happening.
Don't.
Like that's almost like that's more confirmed than Nova. Like Nova is like, oh yeah, he's going to happen.
You think
Ms.
so?
Marvel,
You
they've
don't.
already
You don't.
said it's
You don't
happening.
think they'll either give her a Disney Plus series or make her like a TV?
No, she's
type
coming.
thing?
Kamala is coming.
Kamala will be
Captain
here.
Marvel too.
I'm not saying TV is a bad thing.
No,
But like,
I
but I would
Disney
say
Plus is
They will be
erasing the
bringing-
lines.
yeah, and Feige's already kind of said like
Yeah.
we have plans for her after Captain Marvel in
On
the
television.
movieverse. Yeah, no, in the movieverse.
Kevin Feige's not going to worry about putting her on the
Okay,
small
so
screen.
wait, so it was Darkhawk. We're not counting Ms. Marvel because she's already coming. Because plus, I don't want to pick from those three. So, so who was it?
Darkhawk, Squirrel Girl, I forget. See, I don't
Okay,
even
so
know.
just between those two.
Or cardiac.
Cardiac's never gonna happen. I know because he's an F-list hero that I
Yeah, I
just
don't even know what
adore.
you're talking about.
I
What
adore.
he
him.
may show up in a Spider-Man movie. You don't
He
know that.
could. So
I was going to say this. If you don't pick the right answer and you know what the right answer is to this question, I am sitting next to you.
I
but
will
be
say
upset.
Squirrel Girl.
There you go, Matt. Give me a high five.
All right. And so that's where we'll end it. Squirrel Girl. Okay, that'll do it for us on Comic Book Nation. If you have just been tuning in recently with all this Avengers talk and stuff, you can find new episodes on Comicbook.com every Wednesday and every Friday, and you can sign up to our RSS feed there. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. And today we can actually give Matt a joyous announcement to make.
We're on Amazon.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Asterisk. I knew you were going to blow
Why do
this.
you gotta kill it? Why do you gotta kill it?
Okay, so if you own any Amazon Alexa devices, it is as simple as saying, Alexa, play Comic Book Nation, and you can listen to us that way.
That was smooth.
It works. I tried it on my TV. It was
I'm
great.
stomping for Amazon over here. I got to get side money, you know? No, I'm just kidding. CBS, please do not. My finances. If you want to continue any of the conversation we had, you can reach us on social media at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, and you can reach me at Kofi Outlaw.
You can reach me at Matt Aguilar CB.
And you can reach me at Megan Peters CB.
That'll do it for us for this episode. I apologized again for being sick. I try to be kind of invulnerable and invincible, but, I got kids. Eventually I get sick. So apologize for all the coughing. We should have it cleared up. I should have my new throat by next episode. We'll see you then. Comic Book Nation, we're out.